What's good, Giant fans? You've got a Twitter Tuesday on today's Locked On Giants podcast where your questions take center stage. That's coming up next.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name's Patricia Traina. Happy to have you with us on this Twitter Tuesday. Your questions are coming up, and we've got some very interesting questions. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And I'm going to do something a little different also for this show, in that I'm going to give you guys and gals a question. I'm going to give you my question for Twitter Tuesday. And I encourage you to either drop me an email at lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com. That address, by the way, will be in the show notes. Or if you're watching this on YouTube and you've subscribed and liked the channel, just drop your responses in the comment section and let's get a discussion going. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to find a way to have sort of like a pseudo live discussion. And who knows, maybe down the line, we'll make Twitter Tuesday a live stream event as we get more and more subscribers. We're getting there. I'm about a little less than 800 people away from getting my lollipop from the Locked On Network. So tell your friends about this channel, subscribe, like, and ring that little bell so that you get notifications when content is updated. All right, we have a Twitter Tuesday for you today. Let's jump right into everything. And I'm going to actually start with a couple of questions that I received via email. And this one I've got to get to because this has been sitting in my inbox now for over 8 days. And I promised this gentleman that I would respond on the podcast. So this comes from Jeremy D, who I believe is a subscriber to the YouTube channel. So Jeremy, first, let me start off by saying thank you so much for the kind words that you sent in. The quarterback position is a hot topic. All it takes is for Daniel Jones to be exposed to COVID. What is your opinion of our current backup situation? All right, Jeremy, since you wrote that email, obviously the Giants changed their quarterback situation a little bit. You know, that Mike Lennon is still the backup, and they added Brian Lewerke, in place of Clayton Thorson. And you got to remember what it is the Giants are looking to do with the offense. They're looking to open up the vertical passing game. And Mike Lennon should have enough arm strength left to do that. Now, is he a mobile quarterback? No, he's not a very athletic quarterback. So he's probably not going to be doing a lot of, zone read options or RPOs or any of that stuff. But then again, you really don't want that to be the case all the time. You don't want your quarterback, to have to run. So, once in a while, a play and run here and there, yes, but you don't want your quarterback running all the time because that's when he becomes susceptible to injury. So to answer your question, am I concerned with the backup quarterback situation? Not really. I know Daniel Jones has had a history, if you will, of being injured, missing a game or two in his first two seasons. But, part of that is on him. He's got to learn when to say when, as opposed to just keep chugging along and trying to be a hero. And that's what drives me nuts about Daniel Jones. You want to be a hero, then win some games. Don't, be a hero trying to pick up an extra yard or two. That's just not going to cut it for me. But yeah, the quarterback situation, I don't see that changing. I think you're going to see Daniel and then Mike Lennon will be your 1 and 2. And then you will get the Brian Lewerke should be probably the practice squad player. And he's a guy who can give them, also remember, he's a guy who can because of his mobility, can give them the different looks of a Pat Mahomes and all these mobile quarterbacks that they're going to face. So, no, I'm not as concerned about the backup situation as I think you are. So, hope that answers your question. And again, thank you for that lovely email that you sent. All right, another email. This comes from Renato P, who is a regular. Renato, thank you for the questions. Actually, he has 3 questions for me. So let me go through each one. From your 53-man roster added before, was there any change thus far? All right, Renato, I think you're talking about the one I did after the Jets game. I didn't do one, a 53-man roster after the Cleveland game. The next one I do is going to be the last one I do, which will be after the New England game. So I haven't really thought about what's going to change, but what I will do is when I go back and I put that together on Giants Country, I'm going to look at what I did for the first edition, and then I will update it and point out what's changed and why it has changed. So you just have to sit tight on that a little bit until I get to that. All right. Then Renato asks, do you think Kadarius Toney, Ellerson Smith, and Aaron Robinson will start the season on IR, or anyone could show up in week 1? Toney is not going to start on IR. I would be stunned if that happens. I think the situation with Toney is the COVID bout that he had kind of affected his conditioning. And because he wasn't 100%, I guess, he suffered I don't know what the injury was, but it was kind of related. It's kind of like when you work out and you're not properly warmed up and something like that, you tend to pull a muscle or get injured. So I think something like that happened to Kadarius Toney, but I don't anticipate him going on IR. Aaron Robinson will not go on IR. What will happen with him is because he's on PUP, unless he passes a physical and comes off PUP this week, which I don't think is going to happen, they can't put him on IR. What they will do is they will roll him over to inactive PUP. So when a player is on PUP and he doesn't pass a physical, come off of the PUP list, he rolls over to inactive PUP. All right. A lot of people make that mistake. They think, put a player on PUP that's already passed his physical. Nope. Once you pass your physical, you can't go on PUP. If you haven't passed your physical, then you can start the season on PUP. Just bear in mind, though, that it is 6 weeks it's going to take for him to come back. And I kind of see Aaron Robinson's path taking the same path as Xavier McKinney's last year when he was on IR, and he remained engaged with the team and what they were doing behind the scenes, and, then came back and got his feet wet. So that's what I think is going to happen with Aaron Robinson. And then you asked about Ellerson Smith. I think he will end on IR. All right. So remember, the roster rules this year are the same as they were last year, which means if you place a player on IR, you only have to keep them there for a minimum of 3 weeks, not 6, as it's been the case in the past. Also, teams are allowed to bring back any number of guys from the IR list. So that's what I think is going to happen with Ellerson Smith. I think he starts the season on IR. Hey, Giant fans, it's that time of year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron for the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including the $500,000 NFL Mega Contest and the $200,000 NFL Survivor Contest, open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus when you use the code LOCKEDON. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to horse racing. Don't wait to take advantage of all the great offers for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Giant fans, welcome back. This is Patricia Traina, and you have a Twitter Tuesday going on. Your questions are the topic. And I mentioned in the last segment that I was going to give you guys and gals a question. your very own Twitter Tuesday question. For those of you who catch the show on YouTube, drop a comment in the comments below. Let me know what your answer is. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Google Play or Odyssey or wherever you get your audio podcasts, drop me an email at lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com and let me know what your answer is. So my question to you all is, which Giants starter are you most interested in hearing about this week? All right. In terms of the joint practices, in terms of the game against New England, who are you most interested in hearing about? And based on the responses I get, I will make sure that we feature that player next week when I talk to David Turner, who I've been having on the show after the games, and he's been doing a great job helping me break everything down. So we will focus on that player amongst the other stuff we focus on when we review the Giants and Patriots game. So again, which Giant player are you most interested in hearing about? Put a comment below if you're watching this, or send it to lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com. And that is in the show notes if you missed that. All right, let's get back to your questions now. Now let's go to Twitter. We have a few questions that came in via Twitter. And let's see, DR Moore. Let me see. This is DR Moore, 1976, wants to know, is our defense good enough to carry our offense this year? I would say yes, but I would also say that the Giants want the offense to carry their own weight this year. They've certainly, done what they can to beef up the offense and get some playmakers in there. And they feel pretty confident that in year 2 of the same system, the offense is going to be a lot better. But should the defense have to carry the offense, I do think they could do it. I don't think the Giants want a situation like that happening, but I do think it is possible that the defense will be able to carry them. I think the defense, if everybody stays healthy, you're going to see more of a pass rush and you're going to see better coverage on the back end. And if they can accomplish that, right now, my biggest concern with the defense, if I'm being honest with you, is the run defense, which has kind of looked, not too good the last couple of weeks. Again, granted, the starters haven't been in there. I get it. But at some point, you're going to work in some of this depth into the rotation anyway. So you would have liked to have seen maybe some of these guys do a little bit better job against the run. So that's my concern. Okay. Next question came from Big Blake Season. Wants to know if the Giants should sign Josh Rosen as a quarterback. No. They didn't want him when he came out of college. I can't imagine that would change now. Josh Rosen, I don't want to put the guy down, but at this point, he looks destined to be kind of a career backup. Unless he, gets lucky and finds like a Ryan Tannehill type of situation. But Rosen, the fact that he's been on what now, 3 teams, if I'm not mistaken. I just don't see the Giants going for him as a backup or as a potential starter should something happen with Daniel Jones. So that ship has sailed, I'm afraid. All right. Next question comes from Alex 494-59514. Wants to know, how did O'Shane Ximines look to you? And would you be surprised if he ended up getting cut? To your second question, yes, I would be surprised if he ended up getting cut. I know initially I wondered if he might make the roster when he was injured. I thought maybe he was headed for IR or, maybe this beginning of the year starting off on PUP if he hadn't passed his physical. But here's the thing with Ximines. The kid can rush the passer. He's a good pass rusher. His vice, as was the case when he was a rookie, as was the case before he got injured last year, is his run defense. And until he becomes better at setting the edge and playing a contained game, O'Shane Ximines is going to be a part-time player for the Giants, a rotational player. And I believe that Lorenzo Carter and Azeez Ojulari are going to be your starters. You will see Ximines sprinkled in there, But right now, his run defense is just not where it needs to be. And, all the time he has missed hasn't helped. But with that said, the kid's a hard worker. Um, he's getting some excellent coaching. So we'll see if he turns it around and improves in that area. But right now, that's what's stopping him from being an every down player, I think. And no, I don't think you cut the guy. I definitely don't think you cut the guy. If I had to take a guess on who the outside linebackers would be at this point, Carter, Ojulari, Zimenez, and I don't know if not Ellerson Smith. I don't know if Ryan Anderson is going to make it. I guess you could say Ifedi Odenabo, even though he's kind of a defensive line / outside linebacker. I think those would be your guys. And I think I could see maybe Nico Lalos and Trent Harris rounding out the depth. Because remember, you got to have some flexibility between the outside linebackers and the defensive linemen. The Giants asked their guys to do both. Some more so than others, but they asked them to do both. So that's how I kind of see that playing out right now. All right. Thank you for that question. All right. Let's see what we have next. This one comes from Carl Radner at Carl Radner. What is the vibe and excitement level like within the offense this year? For example, the defense had great chemistry last year and felt like they wanted to play for each other from the very beginning. Has the offense shown any signs of that so far? I would say yes, but you got to remember something, Carl. The offense has been missing Saquon Barkley from the team drills. Kenny Golladay has been sidelined. Kadarius Toney has been sidelined. Kyle Rudolph hasn't been there. So they haven't really had that chance, at least from what I could see, to build that camaraderie and that, that sense of brotherhood. Now they're doing it, I know, in the classroom, but until they can get everybody on the field and build up that camaraderie on the field, that chemistry, I don't think they're quite where the defense was last year. And I know what you're talking about, how the defense kind of like banded together like brothers, and, doing it off the field's one thing, doing it on the field is another. I don't think the offense is quite there yet, but that said, they are headed in that direction. And I think as guys get healthy and come back, we're going to see that offense click and mesh, kind of like how that defense did last year. So great question. Plenty more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast, Giant fans. But first, no matter what you need for your car or truck, Rock Auto is sure to have it in its extensive online catalog. RockAuto.com offers brand name parts for every make, model, and manufacturer at highly competitive prices and ships right to your door. Visit RockAuto.com and be sure to write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. That's RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right. Next up, we have a question we have another one from Carl Radner, who asks, how has Jason Garrett's offense improved over last season and what have you seen so far? Carl, right now, it's hard to say because, again, the Giants have been missing a bunch of guys. So I can't sit here and tell you how they're going to deploy Kadarius Toney, for example. I can't sit here and tell you if Saquon Barkley is going to be sent out on more wheel routes or split out wide or played out of the slot or anything like that. I can't tell you that right now. Based on what I've seen, also some of the stuff that I've seen, because of reporting rules, I can't really go into a whole lot on that. What I can say is based on what we've seen from the offense, it's kind of vanilla, but there are things that we have seen in practice that I think you're going to, when you see them in the games, you're going to say, oh, wow, that's new. They didn't do that last year. And I think there are going to be things that you're going to be happy that they are doing that they didn't do last year that now they're trying to do this year. So I'll have to leave it at that. I'm sorry, I can't go into the details because of reporting rules, but I can tell you that there are different tweaks that have been made, and we are going to see some things that we didn't see last year from the offense this year. Okay, let's see. We have a few more questions. Let's see. DA Giants good. The Giants good yet? Okay. I think that's what the Twitter handle is. The Giants good yet? Wants to know, with how poor the offense was last year, are you surprised the first team hasn't gotten more snaps together in the preseason games? Initially I thought maybe they would get at least a quarter in the second preseason game. And Joe Judge actually talked about that on Monday on his call with reporters, talked about how they were thinking of it. That said, hearing the explanation and just thinking it through, I kind of get what Joe Judge is getting at. They've been getting the offense ready in a controlled environment, kind of like putting the training wheels on them. And I think now they're going to take the training wheels off them this week. Would I have liked to have seen them gotten some game reps? Yes, but I don't know how much the injury factor played into it. Judge said that it didn't, but I would question that. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, now that I think about it, yeah, I was a little surprised that we haven't seen him. I get, the goal, the first preseason game, how Judge wanted to see, the guys at the bottom of the depth chart, guys who are fighting for roster spots. I get that, but I would have thought for sure in the second preseason game, we would have seen them for at least a quarter. So we'll see if that pays off. We'll see if they're rusty and how they look coming out of the gate. I have my doubts about that because offense, for whatever reason, is always behind the defense. But that's why you practice. So we'll see how they look in practice. Okay, up next, we have RBI Tony wants to know, has the concern for the O-line help lessened a little bit with the job the backups did the past weekend? I think so. I think part of the reason why the offensive line, there was some concern was obviously because of the retirements, because of the injuries. Now, the interior offensive line, I'll be honest with you, I feel better about the interior offensive line, which is where, you had some injuries, you had some retirements. Where I'm still a little bit queasy is with the tackles. Nate Solder has a shoulder injury. I believe they think that he'll be okay, but if something happens with Matt Peart or Andrew Thomas, I don't know who they plug in if Solder's not available or able to do it. So I would say if there's a priority that the Giants are going to be looking for on the waiver wire, I would go with tackle, to be honest with you. And that to me is the area I'm most concerned with. But you are correct when you say that maybe the concern has lessened a little bit. Ted Larson came in and picked things up pretty quickly. So that took care of the interior. But the tackle position, for me, at any rate, is still a concern. And that's where I think maybe the Giants are going to be active on the waiver wire. All right, one more question. This one comes from G. Grossi Law. Is this year the ultimate test for Jones? If the O-line is at least average and he fails to perform, will they be inclined to go quarterback in the draft? George, you know what? I think that's a fair assumption. I think if everybody stays healthy, the O-line performs well, but Daniel doesn't, if he's making stupid decisions or, not processing quickly enough or doing all the things that he needs to do, then I think at some point, the Giants will have to revisit this decision and the direction they're headed. I know they don't want to go that direction. They don't want to have to start all over with a rookie. I know they don't want to have to start all over, period. I know they believe that Daniel Jones is going to be okay. And quite frankly, in practice, he's looked a lot better. He looks like he's making quicker decisions, processing faster, being a little bit more patient and not making stupid throws. That's against his defense. Now let's see what he does against another team's defense. And I will point something out to you, with the New England game coming up. Now, I don't think Bill Belichick obviously is going to do anything fancy, but I remember when Daniel Jones played against the Patriots, how, let's just say he was confused by what he saw. Now, will Belichick do that? I don't think so. I don't think they'll do that in the preseason because now maybe you're tipping your hand as to what your opponents might be able to expect, even though the Giants and Patriots don't play each other in the regular season. But I just remember that the Patriots defense a few years ago, I think when Daniel was a rookie, I remember them giving him a lot of headaches and that he wasn't able to figure things out. Granted, it was in a different offensive system. It was a different era, so to speak. But that's what I'm kind of curious to see is how Daniel does against that defense. That Patriot defense is pretty good. I mean, not that the Browns defense was anything to sneeze at, but for sure, that Patriots defense is really good. So, all right, guys, great questions as always. Before we say goodbye, I want to just give you a heads up on what we have planned for the rest of the week. So my good friend and colleague here at the LockedOn Podcast Network, Mike Debate, he is the host of the LockedOn Patriots podcast, also does the Patriots Maven Report for SI, which is similar to what I do for SI as well. I have Giants Country, he has Patriots Country, or Patriots Maven, I think is the site. But anyway, Mike is going to be on the program with me the rest of the week. We're going to talk about the joint practices. Mike will be on site, so he'll be able to give us the lowdown on the Giants and Patriots joint practices. And then, of course, on Friday, I will be at the Giants practice, so I'll be able to fill you in on that. And then we have the preseason game this weekend, which will wrap things up. And then decisions to be made with roster cuts and all that stuff. So busy next few days coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Hope you will tune in. Until then, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget about the Twitter Tuesday question that I asked you in the last segment. Check it out. I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everybody who subscribed, and I will talk to you again tomorrow with Mike Debate.